welcome to everyone. We're going to give this just another minute or so before we get started here. It looks like GoTo has recently sent out some new updates for the application, so we'll just kind of hang tight for just a moment before we get things going. In the meantime, Randy, how are you doing in Phoenix today?
Fantastic. It's starting to get a little warm out here, but I'm a warm kind of guy. I like the warmth, so I'm
Yeah,
happy
yeah,
about
it's
it.
pretty sunny and warm here in Orlando. We're down here for the MSP GeekCon convention this week. So we're having a good time and talking to lots of folks about AI and automation solutions while we're here. So lots of good conversations. With that, let's see, it's been about a minute or so, so I think we can probably jump right in. First
Let's
of all,
do
I want to
this.
thank everyone for joining us today and giving us some of your precious time. Today, we're going to talk about some topics that personally I think are really, really cool and have really changed the way we can get things done now using vibe coding with AI tools. I'm pleased to introduce my partner and co-host here for this webinar today, Randy Crockett. Randy is the CFO here for Raven. Of course, my name is Jared. Many of you know me already. I'm the Chief Automation Officer here at Raven. Just to kind
Thanks for
of
having me,
give you
Jared.
a little bit here before we really get started, some housekeeping items. Raven Automation is the organization that can help deliver AI and automation solutions into your business. We have a wide variety of tools that we work with, such as Roost, Power Automate, N8N, Synthrio, and several more. We can help you with custom app and web design for different things that you may need, not to mention building AI solutions to help you run your business more effectively. With that said, let's jump right in. So, the topic for today is from idea to app. When is it okay to use vibe coding? And when should you consider calling an expert to help you get things done? So, I have to say, first of all, what is vibe coding? The big thing here that we want to stress to everyone is vibe coding is the concept of using plain language to type into a prompt and have an AI model generate code based on what you're describing. There's lots of different tools that are out there that you can use for this. We've only selected a handful of tools to talk about today, such as Lovable, Claude Code, Replit, Cursor, Make.com, but the list is almost never ending. There are tons of tools that are out there. Randy, I know that you've used several others that aren't even on this list. Why don't you tell us a little bit about some of those?
Well, so really the ones that I dig deep into are kind of ones you've already mentioned. Cursor, I've done a lot with that. Claude Code, those are the two primary tools that I've dug into. And vibe coding, it's really alluring and it's really opened the door to people like me who, really are technical on a very high level. Um, I don't have a lot of, I don't have really any development experience, but with these tools that are out there, it's amazing what you can build these days with just, basic knowledge. Um, it's really alluring and it's almost a little bit addicting as you get into it. But yeah,
Mhm.
mostly what I've used is Claude Code and Cursor.
Yeah, I've spent lots of time in Claude Code and using Microsoft VS Code in combination with Claude Code to build some solutions. So lots of great things that we can do. But what's really interesting here is we've now entered a period in history where literally anyone can come in and create new software. You no longer have to understand C++ or any other, JavaScript, any other object-oriented language to build any kind of apps or solutions. It's
Yeah,
it's really quite incredible, but there's also a strong potential for danger and risk with some of this. And those are some of the things that I really want to talk about today. But some common uses here, right? Randy, I think you've built a few things. Why don't you tell us some about what you've built?
yeah, one of the great things about it is, like I mentioned, it's really alluring. You start getting into it, you really don't know what's available until you start doing it. So, in general, I would never discourage somebody from jumping in, seeing what they can do on a high level, because you really don't know what's possible until you jump in. Now, that being said, we'll kind of talk about where it's appropriate, how to put the right guardrails in place. But I definitely encourage people to kind of see what's possible, see what's out there, get the vision of what's capable. Um, some of the things that I've built are some. I've built these dashboards that we now have visibility into our financial package and our I would say our back end ticketing package, our project package, and our accounting package, kind of putting them together so that we have visibility into things that we've never ever been able to see before because they've been in disparate systems, right? Or I kind of built myself a little personal little nanobot, right, that can help me see what flights are available and kind of things of that nature, and just really to get a vision of what's possible and what's out there.
Yeah, to piggyback on that, a few of the things that I've created here most recently, internal use tools to help with scoping projects for clients and cut down on some of the time required to get that done. Um, you know, browsing integration guides. We have probably 200 or so various software integrations that we've worked with for some of the tools that we use, and we have integration guides that go along with those. So sometimes it's having that agent that can quickly go find that integration guide that we need to make sure that we're getting everything configured for a service or an application. So yeah, I mean, building some of these things are great. Other potential use cases that we see: building chatbots, customer portals, prototypes for applications. That's a really big use for vibe coding, is that initial prototype. And then, of course, like I mentioned, internal tools and things of that nature.
We're really living in the I wonder if I could world, right? We kind of were in the information age for a long time. Now information is everywhere and the capabilities and possibilities are everywhere. We're now in the wonder phase. I wonder if we could do this. I wonder if this is possible. And that's opening up all sorts of doors and opportunities.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So when we talk about that with some of the benefits of what's here, for one, it's incredibly fast. I have a project that I'm working on for one of our partners now that in normal circumstances, it would very likely be about an 8-week project. We completed the first 5 weeks of that code in an afternoon using AI tools. I mean,
Yeah.
huge, huge time savers. So, the barrier to entry for this is incredibly low. As I mentioned, as long as you can describe what it is that you're looking to have built, the AI models can read that, understand it, build it, make enhancements and features that you're not even thinking about in cases. It really just kind of help you get things established. So going from idea to a functional app or prototype is incredibly fast at this point. But of course,
Yeah.
with that, there, like I said, there is some risk. But
I'd
again,
say Yeah, I'd say
go
some of
ahead.
the benefits. Yeah, I'd say some of the benefits of as well are really, it's very emotional rewarding, right? It just feels cool to be able to take an idea and really drive it all the way to a minimal viable product, right? It's
Mhm.
you almost get kind of a high out of it, right? You're like, hey, I can build this thing in a day that would have taken a developer weeks or months or years to develop before. You can get to a 80% of a viable product in a very short period of time, and it's really
Yeah,
exciting and fun.
it brings about this real feeling of independence. You
Yeah.
know, um, how many ideas over the years, at least when I think back, ideas that I've had that would have been good things to implement that never got done simply because of the amount of workload or time or complexity of the task. And having these tools available to us, it is absolutely amazing what we can do.
Yeah. And with
So,
that, you kind of have a double-edged sword, right? You're like, hey, I can build this super fast. I can create
mhm,
this. And then you have, for one, you have the risk, but then you also have runaway scope creep, right? You have,
that
oh, I
never
can build
happens.
this, right? Yeah, right. That never happens, right? You're like, oh, I got this little project. Oh, but what if I do this? Or because then it starts opening your mind to other opportunities that were never even available for. And then all of a
Hmm.
sudden it's 4 a.m. and you're out of tokens, right? And you're like,
Oh, yeah.
what just happened with the last 4 hours, 6 hours of
Or
my life?
2 p.m. and you're out of tokens.
Yeah, or 2 p.m. and you're out of tokens. Yeah, it happens, right? All the time.
Absolutely, absolutely. When we start talking about some of the risks and considerations that are out there, the idea is only part of the picture, right? Once you've developed that prototype, you've really got to ask yourself the question, now what?
Yeah.
I have this prototype running. Maybe it's just running on my local machine, but how do I scale that? How do I get that implemented somewhere where other people can use it? How
Yeah.
do I handle, authentication and data protection and access control, just general security? What about the compliance aspect? Many of the businesses that we've worked with have some pretty strict compliance requirements between, PCI compliance for the payment card industry, HIPAA compliance, for our healthcare provider partners, CMMC for some of our other partners that are involved in government contracts and things like that. It's incredible what you have to think about, and that's really some of the big things. So on the security side, some of the things that you really have to consider, you're integrating this application with other tools. Well, those tools more often than not have APIs. So you have API keys that have to be stored somewhere. You never want to have those things in your code, right? So that's something that you have to figure out from an architecture perspective. The access control piece, right? Just because someone logs in doesn't mean that they all need to have the same level of permissions and access. It's a common thing. We've seen this before. Someone builds a customer portal, and the next thing you know, customer A has access to customer B's invoices, or vice versa, right? You have to deal with concerns around public databases and information protection to make sure that you're not exposing things to the internet in an insecure way, right? So these are a lot of the different considerations that are there. Randy, why don't you tell us a little about what you've seen in your own experience?
Oh man, so many. Like it's so easy to build this viable product. For example, I built this reporting platform that digs into our financial platform and connects it to our ticketing and project and our PSA tool. Right? It was great. It was amazing. I'm like, okay, well, now how do I share this?
Hmm.
So I built this, and then I worked with my security team. I kind of uploaded as a prototype to one platform. Go to my security team, and I go, yeah, there's no way to limit that to just us. That's not going to work. I'm like, okay, well, so I pivot. I have to rebuild it for a whole nother platform, right?
Right.
Versal. And so then I go to my team and they're like, well, that's not going to work because of this security issue. I'm like, okay, well, then we kind of ended up on Azure, right? It's in our own tenant, it's in our own platform. We have a lot more security around that, putting it in that platform. So then I have to rebuild it all from the database I was using to a whole new database language, the Azure SQL database.
Right.
Literally, I had to build this thing 3 times because I didn't think it through from the beginning. Now I don't regret that because I learned so much in the process. But if it was the goal of saving money, I definitely wasn't doing that. But I definitely learned and I definitely, going to, my security team helped me mitigate some of those tools that, I just didn't know better. I'm like, oh yeah, this is a public tool. This is normal. This is what people host it on. And, not knowing the security vulnerabilities that brings.
Absolutely. Even in my own experience here, first of all, using Azure for hosting is great. Most partners have an Azure tenant at this point. You're working with Microsoft Mail. You may very likely be working with Microsoft Intra ID for your internal user authentication piece. So it's really a natural choice to use Azure for some of these things. And of course, Microsoft Azure has a suite of um, products and tools available through app registrations, static web apps, Azure functions, logic apps, of course, blob storage for data, various database types, right? So, Microsoft absolutely provides pretty much all of the tools that you need to build and store an app for your own internal, sometimes external use, depending on what you have. But I can tell you firsthand, one of the first apps that I built using vibe coding, Prototype was ready in, I don't know, 3 or 4 hours. Not a lot. But the next 8 to 12 hours was spent getting it off of my local machine and hosted in Azure and troubleshooting these obscure timeouts for actions because I was using the wrong Azure service. So lots of learning
Oh
involved in
yeah,
that.
I did the same thing, brother.
But the nice thing is, you can absolutely use those app registrations inside of Microsoft Azure to help control authentication. Now, I know we're probably getting a little deep here on the nerdy stuff on the technical side of things, but Azure is a great way to do it, a great way to offer scalability as well. But there's other things that you can use. Supabase, for example, Railway. Though I know Railway recently had some situations go on with Claude Code Agent that went a little too far, but I think that was a situation of shared responsibility across the board, missing some human in the loop confirmation. So, but when we get to the compliancy side, legal risk, you know, this is where you've got to ask yourself, what is my app doing? What data is this exposing? What am I, what compliance do I need to deal with? Do I need to work with HIPAA, GDPR, SOC 2? What about my cyber insurance requirements? And I know, Randy, this is an area that you could probably talk about a good deal on cyber insurance. Tell
Absolutely.
us how vibe coding and cyber insurance are impacted.
Yeah, generally, as you renew your insurance, you kind of go through a questionnaire. Do you have personal identifiable information? You have a kind of a questionnaire. At least that's the companies that we've worked with. And as you are developing more of these internal systems, as if you start putting them out to the public, or are they just internal tools? Where are they hosted? Right? It's a very different level of exposure, very different risk level for your insurance provider, right? And so they'll rate you differently. So it's something to be aware of. And kind of with all this is one of the drawbacks, if you will. Again, I'm not discouraging anybody, but we typically don't think of those things up front. Like, where am I going to host this? And what are the security ramifications? What are the insurance ramifications? We're just kind of building. And so we kind of think of these things after the fact, and oftentimes have to go back to the beginning and build it differently or something different.
Mhm.
Not that that's a bad thing, it's just something to be aware of, right?
Absolutely. And the other big thing here is you may be paying for an AI service, and you very likely absolutely are if you're using Lovable or a Claude Code, right? But they are not responsible for the security aspect of the code that's being created. If you happen to be vibe coding and create a solution and it's an insecure software solution, you're the one that takes on that liability with that particular solution as the builder. Even though the AI model wrote the code for you, it's still up to you to ensure that it's good and secure code. So when does do it yourself make sense, right? AI is not bad. Vibe coding is not bad. I encourage everyone to go try it without a doubt. But these are three
Agreed.
things that you really need to look at to help you confirm if a do-it-yourself approach makes sense. One's the cost of failure. So when it comes to the cost of failure, if your solution doesn't work, you've got to consider how much time and effort you've put into it as a loss. You have to consider the impact it may or may not have to your clients, to your team, just to your business in general. If that cost of failure is going to be, on the expensive side, maybe that's not something that you want to tackle with vibe coding. What do you think, Randy?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. It's really, is this a critical function of your business, or is this something that's going to enhance what you already have, give you maybe better visibility, better what have you? And again, it goes back to that 80-20 rule, right? Maybe I can get 80% of the way there. Maybe I can build the minimal viable product and then hand it off to somebody else to make it more of a full-fledged product. And so I think it's kind of a blend, but looking at what is the cost of failure, what am I actually building, is an important piece of, does it make sense?
Yeah, the next thing is how easily reversible is that implementation, right? If you're building something new, is this going to become the primary way your team is working to solve business challenges or serving your clients? And if so, how easily could you step back and revert back to the previous methods or previous ways of doing business? If this is something that's going to be incredibly complex and can't be easily reversed to switch back to business models, yeah, that would be another situation you've got to ask yourself, hey, does this make sense for me to build this, or does it make sense for us to engage in with a software developer to get this solution implemented for us? And then the third is isolation. The solution should always be isolated. If you're taking a do-it-yourself approach, you want to make sure that it's not something that anyone can get to. There needs to be levels of control in place. I can tell you, anytime I start building software, the very first thing that I do is build it locally on my machine. It never gets exposed to the internet. It never gets exposed to any other outside sources. All testing is done local. All features, patching, bug fixes, all of those things happen in the initial design phase. And once I'm satisfied that all of those things are worked out, that's when I start looking to push that to a hosting provider. And even then, we still want to enforce isolation. We're not opening it up for everyone to go test. We need to get it to the hosting provider and then repeat all of the same tests that we just did on the local version. Randy, what have you seen in doing that?
Yeah, I think just overarching. I think these are just really critical pieces. Like you mentioned, I think the real test fundamentally at the end of the day is if this thing disappears tomorrow, what breaks? If the answer is nothing critical, I just redo a couple hours of work. Vibe coding really is probably a good answer for you. If the answer involves customers, money movement, compliance, you're really probably in the wrong room, in the wrong platform. Probably is something you need to reconsider.
Well, this is a good segue. So, good use cases for do it yourself. Obviously, we talked about prototyping in the beginning. And Randy, you've talked about internal tools and dashboards that you've made.
Yeah.
But other good use cases, testing a business idea. Maybe you have a new way of delivering service. Maybe you have a new solution that for your clients. Vibe coding is a great way to test those ideas. Maybe select one partner to test with, get feedback, continue to iterate and enhance. Um, Maybe you're in the middle of moving from one system to another, and some of those migrations can take months to move, from one platform to another for your business. And you need some kind of temporary tool to serve as a middleman until you have things done. Excellent do-it-yourself use case for vibe coding. But another one on the sales side, lead management, building automations and CRMs and things like that, using vibe coding, always a great idea for good do-it-yourself use cases. We've done some of that for HubSpot, the CRM that we use. We have some partners on CRMs like Go High Level. We've done some things there as well. But those are all good places to start. Randy, what other ideas do you have for good use cases here that people could work with?
I think you really hit the nail on the head with your use cases. Those are really a good core set of do-it-yourself options, like internal dashboards. Again, going back to, does it involve your customers? Is it, if it goes away tomorrow, what breaks and what's really, the ramifications of that. Some just basic internal workflows, your inbox, alerting, personal scopes, things you could do just in your own personal life, right? What can I do with my Gmail inbox? What kind of things can I learn there? Again, for me, it's a lot about learning, and it's a lot about experimenting, and it's a lot about seeing what's really out there and what's really possible, and getting inspired, and then taking that, when it gets to the right point, to the right professional to help me lock it into something that's really viable.
Let's talk about when you should consider looking for outside help. Number one, data sensitivity. If your idea involves any level of sensitive data that could be damaging to your business if it got out to the public, probably not a good idea to do it yourself. That's probably the best opportunity to reach out and get an expert. Solutions that are absolutely critical to your operations, right? If your business can't run without the thing that you're building, then you may want to reach out and engage an expert for that. Obviously, compliance requirements, right? If you're building reports for your patients in your healthcare facility, right? You probably don't want to tackle that yourself. You probably want to engage with an expert for that. And of course, the customer facing piece. Anytime it's customer facing, get a second set of eyes, get an expert involved in looking at those situations. And then multi-system integration, right? Building a portal that accesses one system and returns data, that's one thing. But when you have a system that needs to span across multiple services that you may have and pull that data, so it's a multi-system integration piece at that point, that's when things really, really get complicated because now you're working with multiple API keys, different APIs that may have different ways of responding and different ways of returning that data to you. Those would be the ideal times to give an expert. Randy, what are your thoughts here?
Yeah, I think these are really great technical reasons for when you want to call an expert, but I think there's something that's even bigger. I think the dirty little secret that we never talk about with vibe coding is ROI math, that people don't count their own time, right? Um, if you
Guilty.
value your, what's that?
I said guilty as charged.
Oh, me too. Me too. I mean, if you really value your time honestly, a lot of these DIY builds just don't make sense versus either buying a SaaS product or hiring it out. Doesn't mean don't build it. It just means be honest about it and be honest about what you're building. If it's, because it's fun and I'm learning, totally legitimate. If it's to save money, it's not going to save you money, right? Vibe coding is really probably in the end not going to save you money. If there's a viable SaaS tool that's already driven, if you think I'm going to build something that's going to save me money, you're missing lots of pieces there from a security standpoint, from a hosting standpoint, from a keeping it up standpoint, from a maintenance standpoint. All of these things are things that we often just don't take into account. I'm not saying don't do it. There's lots of value to learning and growing and expanding your knowledge on what's possible, but getting the right people involved in the right time, and don't discounting your time. If you're like, well, I don't want to get Raven involved, or I don't want to get somebody else involved because that's going to cost too much money. What are you saying your time's worth, right? You're really underselling the value of your own time if you're not willing to think I should have somebody else do this. I should do this myself. I think you're really missing a core piece of the ROI aspect, which is your time.
Yeah, you also brought about something that we haven't really talked too much about yet. It's the maintenance side.
Oh,
You know, building the application, building the solution, that's only part of the picture. Every piece of software out there needs some kind of recurring maintenance schedule to push updates and patches and to keep it secure. And that's a big area that we see a lot of folks that are vibe coding solutions they miss. They get the initial prototype done, they go live with that prototype, and it never gets touched again for updates or feature enhancements or any other maintenance. So that's a huge risk right there.
absolutely. Absolutely. Security holes come up down the road. They may not be now, but you might be on a software package that becomes obsolete. All of a sudden,
Hmm.
security holes are found, and it's just sitting out there, right? If you're
Right.
not maintaining it, managing it, it really becomes a liability for you.
Yeah, and I've definitely seen in some of my own work where the AI will absolutely use software packages that are deprecated or will be deprecated very, very soon.
Yeah, you have to use lots of iteration loops. Hey, is this really the right tool? Hey, is this really
Hmm.
secure? Hey, you do a critical, evaluation loop on your platform. It'll find things every time to say, oh, I should have thought about that more. Oh, I missed this when I first built this, because AI is really great at giving you a quick solution. It doesn't necessarily mean it's the right solution.
For sure, for sure. So let's look at a basic framework that you can use. So this is the real take home today. If you're considering building a solution and vibe coding that yourself, there's five key questions to ask. One, who is your intended user? Is it your internal team? Is it your customers? If the answer to that question is your customers are the intended user, you should probably engage an expert. The second question, what happens if that solution breaks? If you can continue on with your business like nothing has happened, cool, build it yourself, vibe code all day long. But if your business stops because that solution breaks, then you probably should engage an expert to talk through that and plan that. What data does it touch? If the data that you're serving with this solution is not confidential data, if it can be exposed to the internet and have no impact to your business, cool, go build that thing. But if you've got any level of confidential data or anything that could potentially be damaging, then you should hire an expert. Uh, in the spirit of maintenance, how long does it need to last? If it's a temporary tool that you only need for a few months to get by, okay, great, build it, run your business, move on. If this is something that is going to be an additional service or solution you're providing to your customer base and it needs to last really the test of time, essentially, then ask yourself, are you the person to build this or should you engage an expert? And the answer there is you should probably engage an expert at that point. And then the last question, would this hurt the business if publicly exposed? If the answer to that is yes, then do it yourself is not the way to go for that solution. So if you take a look at the chart on the screen here, things that are great examples for do it yourself, internal tools, prototypes, experiments. When to get an expert? If you're dealing with any sensitive data, processing of payments, compliance heavy loads, things that are customer facing or mission critical to your business. Those are the things where you really should consider engaging with an expert to ensure that you're getting what you need delivered.
Yeah,
Randy, you have any additional thoughts there?
I would. These are really great technical reasons, very, very viable. I would say, kind of overarching, even kind of on top of that, what I said before. What's my ROI? It is going to take you way longer than you think it does, and that's okay. If that's what I mean, if you're digging it, you're liking it, you're feeling fulfillment, you're exploring. That's great. Just be honest with yourself. What's my ROI and what's my time worth? Because it's going to take you longer. You get into it, you're like, oh, what about this feature? What about this function? What about, it's just scope creep is real in this world. AI is very good about over scoping and over scaffolding for sure.
And this is why the finance guy is on this webinar to help talk about the ROI side of things. Clearly, I'm the technical guy.
Absolutely. Absolutely. It's a big piece of it. What's your time really worth? Again, I love it. I waste a lot of time building lots of random email box management stuff, right? But there's great tools, $20 a month. There's great tools out there that'll do the same thing. But it's fun.
Yeah,
It's a lot of
well,
fun.
yeah. Let's be real. I was very much against the idea of vibe coding, yeah, and you're kind of the one that made me consider this in a different way.
Yeah, there's definitely a place for it, right? It just opens your mind to so many opportunities, but it has its place and it has its limits and it has its guardrails for sure.
Absolutely. So the future outlook. How is vibe coding and AI assisted coding going to really have an impact? For one, it's not going to eliminate any kind of software delivery professional. Software engineers, architects, they're here to stay, right? But what we will see, and we've already seen it, shorter delivery timelines, going from idea to prototype in an afternoon. We're absolutely going to see it empower business operators. We're seeing that today. Randy, you've experienced that yourself with what you've needed.
100%.
It will absolutely affect the consulting space, right? How many businesses reach out to a consultant for help in a given area that they might now be able to solve for themselves with vibe coding? We'll certainly see that impact. It's also going to raise expectations because once you start testing and building things, you're going to start asking questions. Why doesn't this solution that I've been paying for do these things? You know, but we will see a shift in the developer role. The best software engineers are not going to be writing code manually. They're going to be using AI tools to build that code. Then they're going to be doing code reviews and validation. They'll be effectively managing the AI, not writing the code themselves.
I think the 80/20 rule, right? The 80% of getting a viable product is kind of more and more going to be commoditized with AI. It'll be be able to easily develop the UI and the what do I want it to do and kind of the planning and idea. What's not going to go away is that last 20%, the security, the scale, the integrations, the durability, the maintenance. All those things are really long term.
Absolutely. As we shift forward, is your business ready for AI? If you'd like to find out, we've now posted a free AI readiness assessment. You can take that assessment at assessment.ravenautomation.com, or you can simply scan the QR code on the screen right now. Once you fill that assessment out, within about 60 to 90 seconds of submitting that, you're going to get an AI readiness assessment sent back to you, and that's going to let you know where you stand across the various dimensions that you should consider for AI. It'll outline your strengths, your weaknesses, and give you a roadmap and recommendations on what you should consider to address those strengths and weaknesses. At that point, if you want to engage with us on a consultation basis in order to help you get aligned for those AI goals, you're more than welcome to do so directly through our report as well. With that, I want to thank everyone for their time this afternoon. We appreciate you sitting here watching and listening. And by all means, feel free to reach out to us at ravenautomation.com. Hope everybody has a great day.
Thanks, Jared.